Hello, hey guys, what's up? We're back for another live commentary, and I'm once again joined by Jess, who was in for the last one, where we had to jump around a little because this is my little sort of mini series or whatever you want to call it, live commentaries on Don Bluth movies, the animator. And we've had to jump because while I wanted to do this one, The Land Before Time, I didn't have access to it for a while. So we jumped over to Anastasia well into the 90s, and we did that one. And that's one I don't think either of us are that familiar with. It had been a long time since I'd seen it, so I can't really remember what we talked about. And a lot of the
No.
movie we kind of missed. I did what I could. I blathered about Russian history a little bit, but the movie I hadn't seen in so long. Maybe I should have done a pre-watch before we came on. I don't know. But anyway, this is one. Although it's been a while since I've seen it, I know this one backwards and forwards. This is The Land Before Time. It's also very nice.
Well, it's nothing. It's not that old even.
Yeah.
Got it from a kid a couple years ago, I think.
It's crazy I never picked up like just the DVD of it somewhere since it's around and it's cheap and everything. That and its many, many sequels. Although the sequels I've never bothered with, and they're not Don Bluth and
Not at all. And they're on here. We almost just got them the first movie.
How
and then this
are they
was
all
so
on
cheap. That? Well, it's a 5-disc set.
Oh wow.
And they have the first 3 movies, and then it jumps to like parts 5 and 6 for some reason. The Big Freeze and something. I don't know if those were more popular.
I can name them because it's funny because this movie came out in '88. And there wasn't a sequel till '94. Land Before Time, The Great Valley Adventure. Then between '94 and 2007, there was one almost every year. The Land Before Time 3, The Time of the Great Giving, '95. The Land Before Time 4, Journey Through the Mist, '96. The Land Before Time 5, The Mysterious Island, '97. The Land Before Time 6, The Secret of Saurus Rock, 1998. The Land Before Time 7, The Stone of Cold Fire, 2000. Land Before Time 8, The Big Freeze, 2001. That's one of the only ones I'd really heard of. I'd heard of that one.
That's what this jumps to after part 3 is The Big Freeze and then The Journey of the Big Water or something.
Land Before Time 9, Journey to Big Water, 2002. Land Before Time 10, The Great Long-Necked Migration, 2003. Land Before Time 11, Invasion of the Tiny Sauruses, 2005. Land Before Time 12, The Great Day of the Flyers, 2006. Land Before Time 13, The Wisdom of Friends, 2007. And then there was like a 9-year wait. And then in 2016, The Land Before Time 14, Journey of the Brave. So,
wow.
They really got their mileage out of the sequels there. I mean, I think I've seen little pieces of some of them when they come on TV here and there. But, they don't look or really resemble this movie. It's a different animation studio. And they're not on the level. So this is an important movie in my life, coming out in 1988. It's one of the very first movies I did see in theater. It might be the second movie I saw in theater. I'm not sure. The first was a reissue of Bambi in 1987, and this would have been the following year. And it's one that I remember too. Like I actually remember going, and also I remember in either late '89 or early '90, the winter of 1990, when I was in grade 1. One day, I have no idea why, but we went out. I think I told this story on Anastasia, didn't I? That we went out into the hall and watched this movie for some reason in my old elementary in the big hallway. So see that, yeah. So and I can remember watching it. I was like, oh yeah, I know this movie, and I knew that kids around me knew the movie too. And it was just one of those movies that stuck, and people would quote. I would quote with other kids, "Yup, yup, yup," and shit like that in the early '90s. So I mean, it definitely made an impression. As it did, it would be my favorite Don Bluth movie, except for the fact that I adore Dark Crystal so much, and it arguably had a bigger impact on my life because I was a little bit older by the time I sort of recognized I saw Dark Crystal, not Dark Crystal, sorry, that's Jim Henson. I mean the Secret of NIMH. Secret of NIMH I did see as a kid, but for many years I didn't remember what it was. I knew I saw a movie with mice that had this stuff, but I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I was a little older. I was like, oh, Secret of NIMH. And then as I got older, I became sort of obsessed with it. But I just so in a way, even though I like that movie more than this movie arguably had the bigger effect in my life. I was a big dinosaur freak. That was like my first love as a kid was dinosaurs.
Me too.
I think that generation of kids were really into dinosaurs anyway, but I'm sure the movie was a big part of it. I spent a lot of my youth collecting dinosaur books, and not just kidsy dinosaur books, like adult dinosaur books. I'd go to a museum with my parents, and we'd be at the gift shop, and I'd be like, get me this, and it'd be like some really expensive book, and they'd be like, well, I guess it's educational, and they buy it for me, So I could rhyme off scientific names for dinosaurs. I still can remember a little bit of it and all that stuff. So that was really my first big interest as a kid was dinosaurs. And your shirt, that Jurassic Park was the first movie I ever anticipated. Nowadays with the internet and everything, But that was like the first time I heard about a movie that was going to come out, and they, it was in magazines and things like that, and I was like excited, counting down for it. Then I got chickenpox and couldn't go.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that movie in theaters until 2010. Finally got to see it in theaters. And then I saw it again in theaters like within a few years because they did a 3D re-release. So I've seen it in theaters twice since, but I didn't get to see it back in the day.
Thank goodness for re-releases then, because yeah, it is definitely a theater movie.
No, absolutely. I mean, I did get to see The Lost World for whatever that's worth.
I'm sorry.
And
no, it's still all right. It's just not.
It was an interesting experience at the time. It was a big deal. Rowdy audience. We were in line waiting. Ryan was with me for that one.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, yeah. So The Land Before Time. Yeah, I'm excited to do it. It's been a while, but I remember it really well. So this is I guess it's the third Bluth movie, but it's the second one he did with the backing of Spielberg and like Amblin Entertainment. So Spielberg did have some contribution to this movie. They talked about wanting to do a dinosaur thing, and I know they were influenced by the dinosaur segment from the Disney film Fantasia. And at first, I even thought about doing it in that way, where it would have no voices at all. But then they're like, "No, this is gonna be like a kids movie. We better have dialogue," which is what they did, which is probably for the best. But the other thing that sort of always makes me wonder, like, I like the movie as is. What makes me wonder is, like, one of the things I love so much about, of course, Secret of NIMH was it was just Bluth on his own doing his own thing. So the fact was, it was quite dark and scary for an animated film, which really hadn't been done in the West. We talked about the animation age ghetto before. We're not going to repeat it here, but I liked that he was fearless about that, and the movie had scary imagery and even some violence and things like that. And it's one of the things that makes the movie stand out all these years later. And I think this movie originally had some scenes that were a bit darker, and Spielberg basically had them edited out, which bugs me a bit.
I believe that.
Spielberg said to him, "It's too scary. We'll have kids crying in the lobby and a lot of angry parents. You don't want that." So something about almost like 11 minutes of footage were cut. So because it would have been like PG, because they wanted to get it down to a G rating. A lot of it was stuff like when the T-Rex is attacking them and trying to make that a little less scary, which is actually funny. If you watch, it actually results in some continuity errors in the chase, like including something with his eye. But there's a few other things too. So, but I don't know what the other stuff is. But I always think, like, I think the movie probably would have been better if they could have kept it. But maybe Spielberg was right as far as reaching to a bigger audience. All I know is, like, he had a big success with Amblin doing American Tail, and this was also like the price he paid for it. Though it was like, now that he was more popular, he had to listen to somebody like Spielberg who wanted to cut it. So I don't know. It's not like the movie was ruined by any stretch of the imagination or anything.
Oh no, no. And they are still. I mean, Don Bluth animation is darker than Disney in a lot of ways.
And there are at least frightening sequences. Our characters do face real danger and things like that. So anyway, we can get going here. Giving people, if anybody wanted to watch along, giving them time to set up. This is on Crave for me. It came just like a month too late, because otherwise we could have done this in a better order. So I just got it queued up here at 01. The first thing is a logo. What's a Universal logo?
I think it's going to be we're in the stars.
It's like the field of stars. So that's where we're at. And I'll just do a countdown from like 3 and after 3. It's not on 3, it's after 3. That's how I do it. If we're gonna do a lethal weapon thing here, is it on 3 or is it after 3? It's after 3. It'll be a 3, 2, 1, then press.
Press play.
That's how I've been doing it since the Sausage Factory days. So let's get going here, people. The Land Before Time, 1988, Don Bluth. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, push play. And right away, I'll probably have to adjust my volume. Let's see. So yes, there we go. The familiar Universal logo in space.
Yep. An MCA company.
Yep, we are in sync.
Now, I'm probably repeating this from the last one too. Land Before Time definitely had the same effect. You said it all in your intro, but it's in the top 3 for sure of Don Bluth films. I mean, I love American Tail. I love All Dogs Go to Heaven. So this is exciting. Yeah,
it's funny. I had already forgotten like how this sequence does. It's almost like a little sort of almost evolution type sequence with the water.
Yeah. Don't they have a narration coming up?
Yeah, there is narration. I can't remember the actor's name. Narration is by. I had it. Oh well. Another good thing about this movie is like you're not actually distracted by like big name actors or anything like that.
No, most of they are actual kids doing the voices.
Yeah, which is nice. I'm sure the narrator is somebody, but anyway, Hinkley. I had it and I lost it, but no big deal. I'm sure
Is George Lucas too involved as a producer?
He is, yes. So this isn't just Amblin. LucasArts is actually part of this too. So yes.
Huh.
So we're in the big leagues now, Don.
Yeah.
I mean, he started that way, sort of, with Disney, but he was just sort of a part of Disney, but now it's his own company. So, and of course, and again, I'm not going to repeat because this goes back to almost anything I've talked about with the animation, but talked about, of course, the effect that Don Bluth's company had on Disney. Disney's Dark Age was sort of made worse in a way by the success of the Bluth things, which sort of forced Disney to up their game and get back. And people talk about the Disney Renaissance at the end of the 80s. In the wider context of that, you could say there was just a Western animation renaissance, which began, and this movie would have been right at the start of that. So you would say like the earlier Bluth movies were like leading into it. This is, I would say, the beginning of the Western animation renaissance of animation.
Well, we talked even his earlier ones; they were kicking Disney's butt, basically.
Yeah,
as far as being a animated film.
Yeah, and what's funny is like a lot of people, I think, because Jay and I did a whole episode on Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension on the Black Cauldron, and a lot of people look at that as like the absolute like bottom of the barrel for Disney. But I feel like people including Disney, took the wrong lessons from that movie. So like because it was it didn't do well. They took a risk. It didn't work out. It was actually beaten at the box office by the Care Bears movies, which is just embarrassing. But I feel like Disney and people took the wrong message for that because they were just like, oh, Disney tried to go like more dark and complex and it blew up in their face. But that really wasn't it. It was just that it wasn't a good movie. The animation is actually spectacular, and I appreciate the darker angle. The problem was it just wasn't a well-told story with good characters, which is usually the hallmark of Disney, and I feel like that. So anyway, if anybody's interested in that, we did do an episode on that. So yeah, we got some narration going here. But
it's beautiful animation. I'm probably going to say that 100 times.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the movie has some decently heavy themes too for like a kids movie about things like survival.
That's kind of what I meant earlier by they're definitely darker than Disney and not just scary scenes but tones.
Because I feel like even some of that stuff they talk about in The Lion King, like Circle of Life stuff, it was in this movie. They just don't like state it outright. It's like more subtle. You don't have somebody just saying literally Circle of Life and explaining it. You just sort of see it, which I like. So, I mean, this movie is about survival, which is already in itself kind of edgy for something like a Disney property. Disney properties have adventures and stuff, but having something like people, losing their parents and struggling for survival is pretty dark stuff, even if you wrap it up in sort of cutesy package with this movie and its characters. So it's still underlying, has a pretty serious story going on with high stakes. So here's the duck-billed dinosaur family. I guess that's an Anatosaurus. There's a few different versions of duck-billed dinosaurs. They're known hadrosaurs. I'd say that's an Anatosaurus based on...
Is that okay?
Which is a little less obvious, because when you're a kid, I mean, even most adults can sort of name the basic ones like this, like a Triceratops. That's a Triceratops. A Stegosaurus, which I don't think coexisted. I don't think there were any Stegosaurus left by the Cretaceous. But... we're not going to go too hard on as far as historical accuracy goes here, because one of the things that's like I think influenced them was also, like I said, in that Rites of Spring segment from Fantasia, was a Tyrannosaurus having a fight with Stegosaurus, which never happened in history because they were separated by millions of years. And of course, if you're going to do a dinosaur movie, you can't not have a Tyrannosaurus. He's the most popular and he's the most dangerous. So if you have to shoehorn, dinosaurs in from other eras to mix with him, so be it. So that's fine.
I'm totally fine with that.
That's an Oviraptor trying to steal the egg. So this must be Littlefoot's egg, I'm guessing. Proud about this sequence.
I, for some reason, did too. And I've watched this in last 2 years.
Yeah, there's Littlefoot. So he got separated briefly, but he's okay from his long neck herd. So some kind of, what's the word? Sauropod. That's
yes.
That's some kind of sauropod. Now people can say he doesn't seem to be long enough to be a diplodocus. And it's funny too, because I also grew up in the era where people talked about Brontosaurus, but at the time it was the time that people thought Brontosaurus didn't exist, and it was like, and I was often among the people that corrected them and said Brontosaurus is actually just an Apatosaurus, and they had the skulls mixed up. Now in the recent years, they found out that both exist. That they
actually do have a Brontosaurus.
There is a Brontosaurus and an Apatosaurus. It's still true that for many years people were mislabeling Apatosauruses as Brontosauruses, but
because somebody took a different head and put it on there for
they just made a mistake. And for a long time, the prevailing thought was there actually is no such thing as a Brontosaurus. All you're seeing is an Apatosaurus with the wrong head. And then more stuff was found. Like there is a whole distinct other species similar to Apatosaurus. So now there legitimately is a Brontosaurus, which is kind of weird because that's one of the things I remember as a kid always correcting people on.
Yeah, me too.
So it seems likely
because it became a generic term too for any sauropod. Long neck sauropod. Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I feel bad that like the less long necked, the taller the brachiosaurs. I feel like they're so underrepresented when it comes to like movies and things with dinosaurs. They always go for the more classic long necked sauropods. But I was always interested in the brachiosaurs. Wasn't it a
brachiosaurus in the original Jurassic Park, or was that an Apatosaurus?
I think they show some brachiosaurs. Yeah, it was. It's an brachiosaurus that they have that thing where they're feeding it and it sneeze on them. So that's true. That is a brachiosaurus. And some of the shots, because Jurassic Park actually shows both kinds, which is neat. But you're right. I said underrepresented, but it does get a whole scene to itself when it sneezes on Lex and everything. That is a brachiosaurus.
So.
But also the other thing was I'm also of the age when, again, this was being debunked at the time, but books were older, where people used to believe that something like an Apatosaurus were swamp dwellers, because the old prevailing thought was their bodies were too heavy and they spend a lot of time in the water. And the whole slow, sluggish thing, which Jurassic Park helped. I mean, scientists themselves found this out, but it wasn't until like something like Jurassic Park, the book, and then later the movie helped debunk this, that no, dinosaurs probably were not slow and sluggish and like acted like a lot of cold-blooded animals at all. And maybe they could have even been warm-blooded in some ways, and they were a lot more active and fast. And that the swamp thing was just bullshit. So this is interesting because you'll see this is an older example of the Tyrannosaurus, which is sort of a more stiff, lumbering type of beast, which is also represented in my good buddy Grimlock from Transformers. The Tyrannosaurus he turns into is that sort of debunked version of the T-Rex. Yeah, straight up and sort of slow. I mean, I love him. Actually, I might as well show him because he's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a nice. This is the newest version of him. For so many years, I ignored Transformers because, well, I was an adult and blah, blah, blah. The last few years, I've broken down, started buying them again. So here's Studio 86 Grimlock with Wheelie on his back. So this is based on his reference. So you see a short tail. You see the legs and a sort of a barrel chest and things like that.
Sweet.
That's what he was like. So yeah, this is based on his, from Transformers, the movie. Him and Wheelie with the slingshot. That's a non-transforming Wheelie, though, which is really disappointing. This is a really expensive figure. You wish at least the Wheelie would transform, but he doesn't. Anyway, still love Grimlock. Meet Grimlock. but that's just, like I said, a good representation of the way people used to think Tyrannosaurs were that really didn't get sorted out until like the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, right, I'm from that era for sure. I mean, you bring up Transformers. I wore the original early 80s Transformers cartoon movie. That was my first shirt to school in kindergarten.
Yeah, that was my favorite show by far when I was a kid. Even though I'm a little younger than that generation. So by the time I started watching Transformers, the show was over. and I was watching reruns of it. And also, I was too young to see the movie, and I was 3 when the movie came out in theaters, so I didn't see it in theaters. So all I knew was that something happened between the 2nd and 3rd season, and sometimes they talk about it and show it, but I didn't see the movie yet. So I was like, Optimus Prime died. When did that happen? You know, like, because that's what it was if you were just watching the show and hadn't seen the movie. So that's another thing, talking about the animation age ghetto and stuff. Like, people often say that's a movie that traumatized a whole generation of children. Because not only does it kill Optimus, but it just kills off a whole bunch of people. You're watching this show where giant robots are fighting battles every day, but nobody gets hurt. Suddenly in the movie, they shoot each other and they're dead. You know,
getting rid of all your favorite characters. Yeah,
I know. Got to make way for the next line. Like, he's just in reach. Galvatron.
Nice.
Oh my god! Again, I spent way too much money on him, but he is gorgeous. He's not from the '86 thing, but he's close enough. It's the same scale and everything. Very nice. He's just within reach because I don't even have a place to put him. Got a whole shelf over there. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Broke my Transformers back in the 80s.
Well, that's the other thing, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to recapture, because I had lots of Generation 1 and Generation 2 Transformers, but I did not take proper care of them. I lost their stuff and everything. So it's like, with the hindsight of an adult, I have all the ones I'm buying now. Like, I have their boxes and everything. That's why I don't have as much shelf room. I still have the boxes because I'm like, I'm not losing anything, keeping it all. I don't care. But yeah. Because that's the one thing. There's like 2 main things I wish I could do as far as possessions go with a time machine. I mean, I'm not going to go back and tell myself, you know, important things about life or girls or something. I'll go back and say, all right, first of all, take care of your Transformers.
Yeah.
And later in the 90s, I have a list of video games and systems for you to buy. Ignore the ones you think are important. Because I remember for Christmas '95, I wanted the Batman Forever game for Super Nintendo so bad. I'm like, now I just want to smack myself and be like, no, get Earthbound, you idiot, get Chrono Trigger. What the fuck are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the movie here. So the whole thing is, we're supposedly very close to the end of the Cretaceous, because it seems like dinosaurs are definitely in their decline and the world is changing. Either that, or they're just going through some sort of minor climate change in their own area.
I guess, but like you said, it's hard to look too deep into that type of stuff when you have completely different dinosaurs in the wrong period.
Yeah. So I guess it wouldn't be right to think we're right at the end of the dinosaurs. Probably not. Probably what's happening again, because the dinosaurs lived on Earth for 250 million years, which is like a time span we can't even fathom, really, when you think about how briefly we lived in. Because I mean, sometimes I can remember looking up a dinosaur that says it lived 67 million years ago. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty close to the end. Not really. It was 2 million years away from the end, which is, 2 million years. So, yeah, I figure it's just more they're going through some sort of like climate change in their area, which did happen over that time.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of extinction level events. The one you hear the most about is the dinosaurs, but there's been multiple extinction level events throughout history. So we're missing our thing here. So he's already separated. He's with Sarah. He's got the tree star, which is a leaf, which is all that's left, because now they're in a barren, horrible wasteland where it's very hard to find anything to eat.
And hey, Gibbs out there in the chat, I just noticed.
Oh.
Retro Cat.
Yeah, I figured you.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. All right, so Sarah is she a hornhead? Oh, wow, I forgot Sharp, and of course they have nicknames. So the Tyrannosaurus is a sharp tooth, which really doesn't do him justice because he's massive. But Sarah is a somewhat standoffish, and I mean, the movie makes a point about prejudice and sort of racism, the idea that these dinosaurs of different species are raised to like avoid each other and not get along and not trust each other. Sarah is the most overtly racist. She was taught by her hornhead that they are superior to idiots like Longnecks and everything like that. So she has this real streak of independence, and where she doesn't want to get help from everybody, especially not, somebody from another species. So that's sort of her arc. They all have their own little arcs to overcome, but Sarah's is mostly like learning to accept help from other people, and also they all have the overcoming prejudices thing going on. Give the actress who plays Sarah credit. She can scream.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get deep into the actress and actor stories maybe later. There's one that's really sad, and I'm sure you know the tale of Ducky.
I do. Why is there so much sadness in this? Like, the one who played Mrs. Brisby in Secret of Nim, like, killed herself a couple years later.
I don't think I knew that one.
She jumped out like a hotel window.
Oh, good lord.
Okay, so they're not completely separated yet. They still have. Oh, this is how his mother dies, isn't it? That's his mother. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lion King, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I mean, Mufasa's death is very tragic.
Oh, and
but it's also, more like, I mean, he is murdered by Scar, as it turns out. But still, there's just something so chilling about this one, just because
more
it's
vicious, more violent in this
right,
one.
it's the predator-prey dynamic coming into effect here. Oh, it's almost cataclysmic, this battle.
I think one thing, and it shouldn't have bothered me, but it bothered me a little then because I am a Tyrannosaurus Rex fan.
Right.
And as a child, I was hoping there'd be a kid character of the T-Rex. I didn't expect it to be the only villain.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing to just see it cast as this mindless beast hunter type thing. I mean, the movie's supposed to be about overcoming prejudices, but it's like, well, as long as you're not a carnivore. Because they're vicious killers. And I mean, I get it. Maybe it would be disingenuous to show a movie where they are getting along with a predator, because it's like, well, that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't have happened.
But I think in the sequel, they did bring up a younger kid Sharptooth.
I figured they must have. There's 13 sequels, so they must have. I mean, they were running out of ideas. They must have done that at some point. Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised.
But I could never get into those either.
No, seen little bits and pieces of them here and there, but it's just not on par story-wise, animation-wise. None of it. Of course, Don Bluth wasn't involved. Yeah, so it's like the fight with Sharptooth has instigated some sort of like earthquake. The clash of the continents, okay, which I guess again sort of makes sense. Although I don't know, because it's not like back then it was any different. The whole point is continental drift has always existed. There wasn't a point where it was more volatile. In fact, you could say it's more volatile now because the continents are more spread out. Because this, of course, would have been back during the time when Pangea had split up a little bit, but most of the continents are still connected.
We're still connected, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why certain species of dinosaurs that are found all over the world now actually in actuality back then, I hate saying in actuality, but I mean would have interacted with each other, because back then they would have been close to each other geographically. Where I live, Nova Scotia, during the time of dinosaurs was completely underwater. So all our fossils are water fossils. Nova Scotia back in the Mesozoic, which is the long if you break up the age of the dinosaurs into what people have heard about, the Triassic, the Jurassic, the Cretaceous, the Mesozoic is those three together. Anyway, during that time, or at least most of the time, geographically, Nova Scotia was underwater in a fairly warm, not too deep sea. Sort of a shallow sea, warm water.
So did you get plesiosaurs or?
Yeah. Stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah.
We have an incomplete one, I think, at one of the museums around here.
Oh, cool.
Might be an Elasmosaurus, I'm not sure.
Which they'll say are technically not dinosaurs, but I mean, you classify dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were actually all different kinds of species of animals. Right. So yeah, these were marine reptiles or whatever you want to call. Just like the flyers technically aren't dinosaurs. Yeah. Pterodactyls, Pteranodons. Pteranodons, that's it.
That was another thing I like to correct people on. People were used to the term pterodactyl, which were small, but the big ones were pteranodons, and often people would always refer to them as pterodactyls. Like in Power Rangers, Kimberly was like, pterodactyls, that's a pteranodon, yo. Now that was something I was the perfect age for. I was 10 when that first came out, and I was I'm not trying to say because I loved lots of stuff that was stupid, but I never was a Power Rangers fan back in the day. I just thought it was dumb. It's funny because I'm such a big martial arts fan now and everything, but you think this
martial
would be tailor-made?
Dinosaurs combined, it should be awesome.
Yeah, and giant robots. But I was a big Voltron fan. I was like, this is just a Voltron ripoff, and it sucks. Was basically how I thought. And all the American sequences with their stupid acting drove me nuts. So even though I was target age for, and I'm not saying I never cared about it, I'd watch episodes here and there. And
I've definitely watched it, but I was older.
I did buy some of the toys.
I had a little cousin who loved it, so that's how I knew it. I was too old.
One of my best friends loved it, and he understood it. He just embraced how cheesy it was, and there was nothing wrong with that. And he was in Taekwondo back then. He was a martial artist before I ever was. All right, so very sad. Just lost his mother.
Littlefoot's mom.
Yeah. And you could say it's sadder, like, also because he does get to talk to her as she dies. Like when Mufasa dies, he's just dead. He goes down. Yeah. And that's sad in its own. Like, it's awful. I mean, say what you want about Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He sells that scene really well.
That was
dad wake up and everything.
Sad scene.
But I'd argue this scene is sadder because he's actually talking to his mother and both knowing that she's dying. And she's telling him, you have to carry on. You have to find the Green Valley. Like, holy shit. So now he's got a quest. But there, it's talking about death. Same thing. You always remember her. Be a part of each other.
So what type of dinosaur is this old?
I don't know. Again, I feel like it could just be artistic license. I'm not saying there are a lot of dinosaurs, and it's not like I know all of them.
Ankylosaurus, sort of.
Like I was going to say, maybe some sort of ankylosaur. Again, you can break that into there's different kinds of them. There's the classic one we're used to, but there's a bigger one that's more spiky, and there's some smaller ones.
Well, and I even think Spike doesn't necessarily look like a Stegosaurus.
Right. Like, I think that's just artistic license. Or like, it's a Stegosaurus, but it's like a cartoon Stegosaurus type thing. I mean, often, at least in this, I think they do give... We'll have to take a look next scene. He shows up Sharptooth. But I've seen a lot of animated things with Tyrannosaurus, or it's supposed to be Tyrannosaurus, and he has like more than 2 fingers. And everybody knows a T-Rex has 2 fingers. But sometimes they'll show him with 3 or 4.
Yeah, that always bothered me. Then I think, oh, well, maybe it's an Allosaurus, but no.
Yeah. And that was what I was a big fan of. I always used to say, Tyrannosaurus is overrated just because he was big. I was like, Allosaurus was the true hunter, and he was true active. And I was like, all those scenes you see them fighting a Stegosaurus, that would be an Allosaurus. They coexisted with the Stegosaurus, I always spoke up. I rooted for the Allosaurus because I thought, because I was opposed to a Tyrannosaurus, who could usually just use his size, kind of like a lion nowadays, to steal kill from smaller animals. Like an Allosaurus was a legit hunter. I like that.
He's like the small cousin of the T-Rex.
Yeah. Well, they're both carnosaurs.
Yeah.
So we're going through the stages of grief here, where he's just numb to everything. The tree star.
Is that supposed to be a baby Petrie or no?
No, that's just, you'll see.
Isn't that his name?
Yeah, Petrie, yeah. The flyer. So it's like hornhead, long neck, sharp tooth. I think just flyer. It's funny that they call them like duckbills or something, considering like ducks don't exist, right?
Yeah,
you're being compared to something that hasn't come into existence yet, which is kind of funny. It's like, I'm called Ducky. I have no idea why. Logistically, it makes no sense. All right, so things are looking pretty bad. Again, this is kind of similar to after. Almost said Jonathan Taylor Thomas. After Simba gets chased away after his father's death, because he's just out in the Badlands and he's almost gonna die before Timon and Pumbaa rescue him. Yeah. It's kind of similar. He's out in the Badlands. It looks like he's gonna starve to death or die of thirst or something. But he actually talks to his mother. And shit, doesn't he eventually see visions of her in the clouds? How much did Lion King rip this off? Lion King already ripped off Hamlet.
And that Kimba
the White Lion.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. It's I'm a big Lion King fan, but when you think about it, it's hardly original.
Well, and they advertised that as their first original story.
Right, because some of the others were based on fairy tales and things like that. What's funny, this isn't related, but speaking of that, was that and Pocahontas were in production at the same time. And apparently, if you were an animator or somebody else that worked in those departments at Disney, you wanted to be on the Pocahontas side. Because everybody thought Pocahontas is going to be great. Because it's going to be a Romeo and Juliet thing, but it's going to be, the discovery of America and we'll have all this. And it's just Lion King. Nobody knows what the fuck that is. And then it turned out to be the other way around. Where
Lion King was
blew
massive. It away.
And Pocahontas is one of the ones I've reevaluated over the years. It's better than I thought it was. It was just sort of such a letdown after Lion King. It made you think it was bad. It's still pretty good. I mean, historical and racial things aside, that's pretty muddy, some of it. Isn't it so fitting that Mel Gibson is there delivering those lines?
It's it's definitely grown on me over time, just as a movie. Pocahontas.
But it's definitely a better
But you're
movie
right.
than I gave it credit for back then.
To a lot of people, it started the decline again from the Disney Renaissance
Yeah.
era.
I mean, I feel like it lasted a little longer.
It did.
I'd say really it was Tarzan, because I mean Mulan and
I like Mulan.
The three
I
after
like
it are all really
Tarzan
good.
actually okay. It's
I don't
definitely
much
not
like it.
its gold, but
because 96 was Hunchback of Notre Dame, 97 was Hercules, 98 was Mulan. I think those are all solid. Don't much like Tarzan. Didn't help that I hate Phil Collins' soundtrack to it.
That probably didn't help at all then.
And I'm not somebody who dislikes Phil Collins. I just feel like he put no effort into it. I feel like he just sat down at a piano for a few minutes and was like, there you go, main theme. So reuniting with Sarah here. Oh, not hornheads, 3 horns. That makes sense that they wouldn't just be hornheads, because she'd probably be prejudiced against other kinds. Like if she saw she's a triceratops. So if she saw like a monoceratops or something like that, or what's the other one called? One's with less horns. Too. She would probably be racist against them too, because she's the 3 horns.
Protoceratops was that?
Protoceratops, yeah. That's what she looks like. That's because she's a baby, because she doesn't have the horns. Have you ever seen? I'm sure you've seen. It's one of the most famous fossils ever found. It's like a Protoceratops and a Velociraptor, and they're like locked in combat. Yes. They died together. That's so awesome.
It is very awesome.
And it's like it looks like it's interesting because it apparently, like, according to forensics, whatever, it was like a double KO. That like the Protoceratops had like caved in its stomach at the same time. They literally, like, they didn't die from some disaster while they were fighting. Like they literally killed each other. Then just
and that's how they were frozen in time. Yeah. That's awesome.
Which is really cool. So here comes Ducky to cheer him up. So I get this bit can get old, but I have to say, as a kid from that era, like, it really worked for us. We loved it. We loved Ducky. We loved to like quote her. She wasn't annoying at all. We were like, yeah, Ducky, yup, yup, yup.
How many times have you said yep, yep, yep?
Yeah, so many. So we just found her delightful. And she's cute too. She's like, see, I could be a long neck. He's kind of mean to her too. She's like, you're a flat face or something. Yeah. Go away. Big Mouth? Oh, is that what they call themselves? Big Mouth. Okay, maybe it isn't Duck. She still calls herself Ducky, but where?
Yeah, the name's Ducky. So
Big Mouth. She lost her family in the big earth shake too. So she's an orphan. Love the soft colors in the background there.
Oh man, yeah.
Like, it's not detailed, but it does the job.
Oh, it totally does, and it's still beautiful.
Because during the era like that led into this, which is sort of the dark age of animation, where it was cheaper, less effort was put into it, and they reused backgrounds and stuff. They might have backgrounds like this, but this shows like Bluth had an understanding of how to like even get the most out of that. And of course, he does do lush, detailed animation, which is one of the reasons why he left Disney, because he felt they were getting away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows like he has an understanding of when you can simplify, and it can still work.
But it's simplified beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. You can still tell what things are in that fuzzy, watercolory.
Right. I think one thing that I love to talk about with animation that's interesting, because it's different from like a live action movie, is the concept of lighting. Like, there's no such thing really as lighting in animation, but you just create the effect. And I love how certain movies do it. Maybe the best example is like Akira, that movie's lighting effects, again, such as they are. It's not real lighting, but the animation to create the impression of light is just breathtaking.
It's brilliant to even think that. Mm-hmm. How are we going to do this with the shadows and the lighter colors at the right spots?
There's Petrie, who is really the closest thing to sort of the over-the-top slapstick character, and he's not that bad. And it's as I complain about every Bluth movie we do, I complain about Dom DeLuise and his dumb characters. He's not in this movie because he jumped ship and went over to Disney to do one of his dumb characters for Oliver and Company that year.
Yep.
What's hilarious about that is that's a movie with an animal cast, and Dom DeLuise plays a human. It seems so weird.
That's right.
And I mean, that's part of Disney's dark age, supposedly, and it's not that great of a movie or anything like that. But I still have a soft spot for it. And the opening of that movie is devastating, despite the fact that it's not as seriously sad as some other things, because it all turns out. But the opening of that movie is Oliver abandoned on the streets of New York. Like, it's only a few minutes, and he eventually gets found by the Billy Joel dog, and then he goes on, and everything turns out okay. But like the first few minutes is this montage of him wandering around New York by himself, and it is heartbreaking. You're thinking this tiny defenseless kitten abandoned on the streets, and it's, oh my god, like it's all I can do to keep it together. This is a good scene. Really good tension here.
Yeah.
The KO'd Sharptooth. I think I used to honestly have nightmares of being in this scene. Of having to cross a cave with him and try to not to wake him up.
Knocked out Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah. She's convinced he's dead. So she's like, I'm going to mess him up a little. Yeah, she has the one horn on her nose at this point. And I can't remember for the life of me the name of that dinosaur. I had a toy of him too from Dino Riders.
We were talking Dino Riders, I think, on Jay's channel a few weeks back with the VHS.
I had several Dino Riders toys, and one I had was that kind of dinosaur. It's smaller than a Triceratops by quite a bit, and it only has the one horn. And it was one of the bad guy ones because it had the cool mask on its face. Remember, they put masks on their faces to control them, the bad guys? See, that's a Dimetrodon, which is not a dinosaur, and would have been extinct millions of years before this. Dimetrodon existed before dinosaurs in the early Triassic. I remember that much. That thing with the big fin on its back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also had a couple toys of him. I have a toy of everything. I love dinosaurs, but I mean, I had some sort of generic toys, but I also had some very good ones. And of course, I had Jurassic Park ones, Dino Rider ones. Also, speaking of those times at museums and stuff and buying expensive books, there was you can probably look them up. There was a line of they were less toys and more like models of dinosaurs from it was called the Carnegie Collection. I have quite a few of those. Those are still back in my childhood bedroom. The T-Rex is difficult because he always falls over. He's not well made to stand up. He falls forward. But I had a Tyrannosaurus, two different Dilophosauruses. They were in different poses. Allosaurus, Corythosaurus, which is a kind of hadrosaur, duck-billed dinosaur. So the one that has the weird, almost looks like a helmet for a head. Also, the other duck-billed dinosaur is Parasaurolophus, which is the one where it has a straight coming back off its head, like a straight fin. Parasaurolophus.
That's the one I think I know the most.
Yeah, and I had an Iguanodon.
Well, I was just going to ask you, the Iguanodon, is that something similar to the one we saw earlier? What'd you call it?
The Anatosaurus, yeah. They're all duck-billed dinosaurs, and they're all upright ones.
No, the Iguanodon with the fin on its back. What was the...
Oh, no, that was Dimetrodon.
Dimetrodon.
Technically not a dinosaur. But Iguanodon was the first full skeleton ever assembled. Although they did it wrong. I don't know how well you know your history of paleontology, but back at the Crystal Palace in Britain, which eventually burned down, that when they made the first dinosaur exhibit, the dinosaurs they had were Megalosaurus, which is an upright predator, like a smaller Allosaurus, and they had an Iguanodon. But as we know now, an Iguanodon is a hadrosaur. It stands on two legs. It has spikes for its thumbs. But the way they did it, they assembled it wrong. They assembled it on all fours, more looking like a giant lizard, and they didn't know what to do with the extra spike, but they put one on its nose, which was just guessing. You can look up stuff from the old exhibit.
Gonna have to.
So here's Sarah blabbing about how she's the one who killed, basically, Sharptooth.
Yeah.
And they're eating it up, except for Littlefoot. He knows. Yeah, my father told me flathead. Yeah, they're called long necks, but see, she says flatheads. So they've even got racial slurs for each other. Because long neck is the accepted term, and she's calling him a flathead, as her father taught her. So she's actually throwing out her own racial slur at him.
Hell yeah. Iguanodon.
Yeah, the Crystal Palace burned down. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I guess it was really something back in the day. Here's where they find Spike.
And we're still continuously rediscovering and going, oh, we were wrong about this. Maybe the bones go here, or maybe the dinosaurs did this.
I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like things like we have no idea what their colors were. We just guess based on what we think looks good or might have worked in nature, but we really don't know.
I mean, we've got
that's one thing I like to do when
but that's about all.
Right. So I used to draw dinosaurs all the time before I learned I couldn't draw. They were like the one thing I could draw, and I used to always give them like cool bright colors because nobody could tell me I was wrong.
No.
It's like maybe the Allosaurus was bright blue. What do you know? Probably not. Blue is a pretty rare color in nature, but this was hundreds of millions of years ago. Maybe it wasn't then, you know? So Spike emerges and eats his little nesting area. Like, I mean, I guess he has the features of a Stegosaurus. They wouldn't be born with spikes. They'd grow them later. The tail seems still too short and thick, but I don't know. I guess that's another thing too. Like, it's one thing to have like a skeleton or enough to create a skeleton of an adult, but you also sort of have to make guesses about how they grew and matured too. I mean, educated guesses, but still.
Yeah, and some of them might be close to what was.
Mm-hmm. Your Sharktooth shadow. Yeah, so at this point, like, Littlefoot believes Sharktooth is dead. They also lived in a small enough area where clearly he's the only predator, because they never seem concerned about anything else.
Yeah.
I guess Petry's the one that gets on my nerves, the way he talks, but I can live with it.
Well, and he was one of the few adult voices of the kids, right? Who did his? It wasn't Charles Nelson Riley, was it?
No, it wasn't anybody too well known. Hold on.
Okay.
Which is one of the good things about it. It was Will Ryan.
Will Ryan.
He died last year.
Oh.
He was also the voice of Grubby in The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin. Something I never watched. I knew what it was, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I was just creeped out by that talking thing.
For like the live action series on Disney.
Oh, Pooh's Corner?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, he was in that. I think he might have been Owl then.
I used to watch that on Family Channel. It was a really weird thing to watch now that I think about it. But what a weird thing to make. What a weird thing to make live action. Right. So that's not the Green Valley. That's just one little oasis. The adults are ruining it. Greedy, long neck, flatheads.
Rabbit and Tigger played in that.
Ah. Yeah, I see that. Oh, Dumbo's Circus, which was another weird live action thing on Family Channel I watched. Like, why were they doing these? Again, I watched it because
we watched it.
Yeah, it was on, so I watched it. I mean, the weirdest one of all was probably Zoobly Zoo, which is just like a bunch of like horny Cirque du Soleil people dressed up as animals talking nonsense.
I barely remember that. Yeah,
I don't think that was Disney or anything, but it was on around the same time, late 80s, early 90s or something. So here's where they use their different. Well, basically they cooperate. That's the idea. If they work together, they can get some greens. But this is where Sarah refuses to accept their help. Petry, of course, his big thing is he cannot fly. But if they all work together, they can get high enough to get some greens.
Who's more annoying, Petry or Robin Williams' character in Ferngully?
Oh, Robin Williams. Which I mean, I don't like to say because I like Robin Williams.
Oh,
And I like
love
a lot of
Robin
characters he played,
Williams.
but I mean, plus that's I think I've said I just had that movie. I hated. That's another one I hated from the time I was a kid. My sister and I went to see Beethoven, and it was sold out.
Oh.
And when you're kids, I was like 9, she was like 11 or 12. You don't have options. The only other movie we could see was Fern Gully, so we saw it, and I even hated it then. And I've seen it in years since, and it sucks. I have nothing good. I have nothing good to say about Fern Gully.
Well, I was kind of excited about it for when I was a kid, and when I watched it, I was so disappointed. Thought it sucked.
Yeah. Wasn't like Tim Curry like some sort of like pollution monster?
Was he in that? That's too bad too, because I love Tim Curry as well.
Yeah. That might have been one of the sequels. I mean, I remember like one of the loggers gets turned into like small, and he has to live with the forest fairies or pixies or whatever they are. Anyway, through their teamwork, they have all the greens, but Sarah will not. She will not eat with them. So I love her plan. I'll just bash my head against this because that's what 3 horns do. So Littlefoot's very nice. He takes pity on her here and makes her think she did it for herself. There, you did it. You're independent and smart.
Littlefoot's an enabler.
He's just trying to make her feel good about herself. But at the same time, you're right. He's overlooking her overt racism.
Yeah.
It's going to drive me crazy. What that dinosaur's called. Is it just Monoceratops?
That could be.
I don't know. Every time I try to say something like more, I'm like, oh, it's something more complicated, mono, and then it just turns into like mononucleosis. I'm like, that's not right. That's not a dinosaur.
Well, it's not Pentaceratops.
See, part of me thinks he doesn't have like a ceratops in his name. Like it's a completely different sounding thing. It starts mono, but it doesn't end like saurus or ceratops or anything, which is why it's hard to remember. Like it's just a completely different sounding word. I don't know. I'll find it out at some point. So here's their real bonding moment again, where they are all going over to Sarah because she's bragging about killing Sharptooth. And he goes and sleeps by himself.
Diceratops is 2.
Yeah.
Cosmoceratops. What the hell?
So he's actually sleeping in like the footprint of a sauropod, an adult sauropod. It definitely wouldn't be cold. But, oh well. Artistic license.
There's going to be a lot of that.
You could argue the talking is artistic license.
Yeah, we didn't.
We don't know dinosaurs. That's another thing. We don't know dinosaurs didn't, speak to each other in a language like humans. It seems kind of unlikely, though.
That one I would bet on.
I think it's a safe bet. They did not talk. Yeah. She just sort of sleepwalks over. I mean, speaking of artistic cutesy license, like I like how Littlefoot has eyelashes.
I did not notice till you pointed that out right now. Yes. And Petrie, did Petrie just bite one of them, pull up her eyelid?
Yeah. Come on, Sarah. For once, the group could help you. Well, actually, I mean, they started together, so she's just sort of feeling abandoned.
It might be Monoceratops, but that still doesn't feel right either.
No, the way I remember it is like it's not one of those like obvious sounding names like Ceratops or Saurus. But okay. I'll figure it out at some point. Oh, she's giving
bother me a little bit till you do.
I felt bad because his mask eventually got broken, so it wouldn't fit on his face anymore. Because we used to play very violently with them, like smash them, eat each other and stuff, and we can make them fight.
Monocyanus. I can't read.
That could be it.
Monocionius.
That could be it. Although I'm again not entirely sure to say it. Stop impaling me.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think this is the sequence I was talking about. This stuff got cut from. I mean, I think there was some other stuff, but this is when I was talking about Spielberg cutting things or saying stuff should be cut. I think most of it came from this sequence.
So it has some slight continuity errors.
And also, I guess some of the screams were changed to sound a little less terrifying or something. Something like that. Wait, let's say. Because some screams were revoiced using milder exclamations. So there you go. So they sound a little less terrified, I guess. Ah, right, the rock that looks like a long neck. Yeah, so at the beginning, his mother did tell him there were certain landmarks to look for on their way to the Great Valley. Okay, that couldn't be it, because that was short. There's like a longer chase sequence that's coming up at some point. I thought that was it, but that's actually a pretty short sequence. They got away. Now it's like raining ash. Really does feel like they're in apocalyptic times.
They could be taking elements from that, one of the end periods.
Yeah. I mean, there were various cataclysmic events and so we're looking for climate shifts and things like that. So, yeah.
Hello, Mystical 905. Can we get an Ethel impression, Jess? I don't know.
Ethel from what?
There's this old lady character that I think pops up on like Jay's show and other shows. Some people think it's me.
Ah, I see. Oh, yeah, I know who we're talking about now. No, that's not you.
Could be Christian.
Unless you're really good, have like a talent of voice acting that I'm not aware of.
There's a few voices I can do, but
yeah.
That Ethel. I mean, I don't know if I'm good at them, but I do voice the voices of like cartoon characters if I can.
Cool.
For the kid.
I could do, I mean, some are the ones like everybody can do. I could do like Dizzy Devil. Remember him from Tiny Toons?
Yes.
I could do him. Although I'd be afraid to try it right now.
I know, me too. That's why I didn't want to start a conversation. Oh, do Goofy or do Donald.
No, I could not. Those are out of my league.
Yeah, when I'm put on the spot, I definitely know they suck. As many times as I've seen this is still just, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short movie, but it does all the right things to just like, hold your attention or hold the attention of a kid. It's a very nice mix of like drama, but with, some comedic things thrown in there. Because I mean, I saw this as a very young kid and, I was just entranced the whole way through. I was never bored or, I was never losing me. So that's not always easy to do. Especially to get something that appeals to kids that, like, as an adult, you can watch and not be either totally bored or annoyed by it. The sun is looking very red. I mean, one thing that's possible is perhaps there was a volcanic eruption somewhere. Oh, as soon as I say it, there's one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we see these things in movies, like, all you have to worry about is, like, lava and stuff like that. But the fact is, like, there's been various times in history, including when humans were around, when a volcanic eruption has drastically affected the planet. Like 1815 or 1816, there was an eruption. This would have been like somewhere around Indonesia, and had the effect of like lowering the global temperature around the world like over 1 degree Celsius. And it resulted in Europe of like one of the coldest winters on record, and a summer that barely registered. It was called The Year Without Summer. It's indirectly responsible for the novel Frankenstein being written. That's when Shelley wrote it. It was like they were having a contest to like write something scary and macabre. It was also to be like fit in line with the theme of the Year Without Summer, something bleak and scary. So it's kind of funny. So yeah, now that we're actually seeing this eruption, you could think maybe this, and there's been a series of eruptions, and it's drastically affected the climate. It at least explains why we were seeing like ash in the air as they were approaching the area.
Which I was going to bring up. I really liked that effect in this animation with the ash falling.
Yeah. Very apocalyptic. But that's the one thing, like, lava is in a lot of stuff for kids. Like, whether it was in the Mario games or stuff like this. I can just remember every time, like, I played, like, a game of, like, make-believe with friends and stuff, there was always a part where we had to deal with lava. We had to cross, like, a lake of lava or something erupted and lava was everywhere.
Yeah,
everybody's played the game The Floor is Lava, where you just jump around on the furniture.
And now I think they've made an official game for kids. I know, like on YouTube, there's a big thing. The Floor is Lava. My kid was into a year or two ago.
Those
that
are
was more than just a basement game now.
Those are Pachycephalosauruses, but there's some artistic license taken with them. They're much more spindly. They'd be more solid in real life. I don't think they had arms quite that long.
No.
You get some of them are in Jurassic Park: The Lost World, I think. It's hard to remember.
Yeah, doesn't one of them butt a Jeep?
Yeah, I remember they're giving nicknames to them all, and one of them calls them like Friar Tuck or something. Oh, Mystical thinks that they've got you pegged.
The world may never know.
You need a tar monster. But I don't know. I just liked being creative as a kid. It's kind of annoying when stuff becomes like official. One game that we had that was like just unique to us was when I was in elementary. Well, the year I was in like in grade 3 or 4, they built a jungle gym for us, but it was not like your typical jungle gym. We used the word jungle gym, but it wasn't like that. It was like a large wooden structure that had ramps, had a ramp going up to one side, and had sort of like everything was wood, but railings and different levels. There was a rope section and everything. It was a large area. There was like I'd have to draw it to really make you understand it, but it had anyway. The point was it was a fairly large structure that had different sections to it, but also the whole thing was it was all. None of it was open. It all had railings, sort of, which were also wood. But it wasn't just like one high railing. It was one high railing, and one low railing was about this high off the ground. So, in theory, what you could do as a kid is you could stand on the bottom railing and hold on to the top one and, shimmy your way along. So we used to play a game called air tag, where it was tag, but you had to do it just that, and touching the floor of the jungle gym and falling off made you it automatically.
Yeah.
Like, the jungle gym doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. They completely leveled that area. So, but I mean, it was fun. It was something unique that like only a certain group of kids got to do at a certain point. And I'm happy I got to be part of it. It was fun.
Jungle gyms and playgrounds, they could be more unique.
Yeah, this was an almost entirely wooden structure. There was also a section with like actual like metal bars you could swing on. But the thing, it was wood. It was a big wooden thing. What's funny is one part, it had like a bridge that went down and up, and it was supposed to be like a bouncy bridge, but we must have broken it immediately because I can't remember ever bouncing. So instead, it was just like a rigid thing that dipped down and went up. The point was, if you jumped up and down, it was supposed to be like bouncy, but we must have broken it immediately. I can't remember it ever actually doing that. But also, a middle section was interesting in that it had right through the middle a series of hanging tires hanging on chains. So it'd be hard to climb up on top of them. And I would never climb through them. I'd be too afraid of getting stuck. Even though you could technically, even if you got stuck, there was enough room to push them so you could drop down from the bottom of them. But anyway, I was way too claustrophobic. But one thing that was cool is like the high section, if you could get on the roof of it, it was the highest point. You could take a flying leap and land on the tires. I mean, very few kids did that. I did it because I was a daredevil, but most kids would never attempt that. But yeah, it was a really cool little structure. And then there was a lower part in another section with a lower roof that you could just sit on. I can't remember when they tore it down. Probably when they tore down the school entirely. It's weird because like the school was old. It was built in 1940. And it was just an old style school, as I've described. But when they replaced it, they didn't just replace the school. Like the whole geography of the area changed. What used to be a hill isn't a hill anymore. What used to be, like it's so different. It's unrecognizable, the area. It's weird. I see it all the time when I'm in Sydney because it's always pretty much on the way to where my parents' house is from a certain direction. So I've driven past it countless times. And I've probably walked around and like, it's just so weird. Remembering what used to be a field that had a hill and stuff, and everything's different. And a part that was like a part we could run on is now a parking lot. It's crazy. Oh. So the kids that go to that school, they don't have nearly as interesting an area. Because the way ours worked was like immediately behind the school was like a paved part, but then that was on a hill. So when winters, we would just coast on them. They get all icy, and we go down on them. And then there was like a field that was kind of like a soccer field. And at the edge of the field was where the jungle gym was built. And then there was another field that less people went into that had a few trees in it that you could climb. And it was a much smaller parking area off that part, way smaller than the one that's there now. And it was different levels too. At one point, either you took the long way, but if you took the short way, it was like, it was a set of stairs with a landing and another stairs. And you mostly stayed off those because those were all like concrete or whatever. Okay, yeah, so he injures the eye here. They're going to injure its eye. Or maybe they already did. Because there's a whole part anyway where I think this is where they actually kill him. Yeah, they actually kill him for good here. So I talked through a lot of it. But there's supposed to be a part where they like, injure his eye and it's supposed to be closed. But because of the stuff they cut and reusing it, they have him with the eye open after it shouldn't be open anymore. But I think that's where they actually kill him for good, because the whole thing here is they think the Petrie died in the attempt.
Which for a moment as an audience you do think. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean... Yeah, you can't unsee the eyelashes once you notice them.
Yeah, now that you pointed that out.
There's Petrie. You go without Petrie? But again, typical to a kids movie, it's okay to fake people out with a death, but you have to you can't make them hang on it too long. So show them the Petrie's okay. Yep.
And those of you who don't know the story, I don't want to get into it and bum out this fun commentary, but look up Judith Barcy. She did the
okay, there's the cloud weather. See, look, there's his mother in the clouds. Which
You're right. Totally, you called it.
Yeah. I knew
Lion King.
That. Exactly.
Simba.
Mother. This is CBS.
Yes.
Everything eventually comes back to The Simpsons.
It does.
It's been on too long. It has too many jokes. Even if I haven't seen a new episode in like a decade.
Me, it could be even more like 15, 20 years.
I hung on a lot longer than most people my age.
Yeah.
Which was included the years I think were bad. I felt like 2000 to 2004, 2005 were like truly bad years. Yeah. Not that there weren't any good episodes in there, but a lot of them were bad. That's when they really succumbed to let's just build an episode around 1, The Simpsons go to X, or 2, let's have like a big celebrity cameo. In the old days, they used to be cameos, but then they was just like, let's build an entire episode around Lisa meeting Lady Gaga. That's not like a random example. That's true. That actually happened.
No, yeah.
Hello, Corey.
And like you said, they could be one line by a celebrity on the show for the episode. I know. And that was the cameo.
It was always it was so brilliant, like the way they do it.
Magic Johnson. Yeah. And of course, Michael Jackson, the first big celebrity, they didn't even use his real name.
Yeah, which was never really explained. Michael Jackson always said it was like an in-joke between him and his brothers, but I have no idea what that makes sense.
What that would be, yeah, I wondered too.
Because the in-joke wasn't just that they didn't use his name, but the singing stuff wasn't him. Even though it was him doing the voice, he didn't sing himself. They got an impersonator to do the singing, and he said it had something to do with like a joke. It's like, what? It sounds more like you just didn't want to sing.
But then didn't he record Lisa Is Your Birthday on an actual album?
Then he went and did it anyway. But for the episode, it's not him. It's so confusing.
Yeah.
All right, Green Valley. I mean, it really is uplifting too, because like the whole thing's been so desolate, and now you finally see the Green Valley, and it lives up to everything.
And the colors, did they just get a little brighter too in the film?
Oh, definitely, because I mean, the whole thing had this sort of apocalyptic feel to it, right? Like there was a lot of reds and oranges, but obviously very little blue or green. And I also like that Spike doesn't have a family, so like Ducky's family just adopts him. Yeah, so we missed the big triumphant moment where he like flies for the first time. But anyway, I wonder if she can change her father's mind, or if he'll just continue to be racist. She'll be like, I made friends with a flathead. No, a long neck. She'll be like, we don't associate with flatheads. It's like, he saved my life. I don't care. No daughter of mine's going to associate with flatheads. It's like, and they all went back to shunning each other.
Oh, hey, Corey. Thanks for stopping by.
We're coming to the end of this one because it is a fairly short watch, but very satisfying. I do think, I wish they could have kept that footage in. Just, I don't know. But it's still a very good movie. As I said, like, as far as going forward, I don't know what Bluth... I mean, you like All Dogs Go to Heaven, so, I mean, that's one I haven't seen literally since I was a kid. I have not seen that.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll feel the same way about it, but...
Yeah. I mean, I remember
that batch,
still...
American
I still remember
Tail,
things about it.
this one, and All Dogs, I just...
Well, as I said, American Tail's the one that has never really affected me, and I don't know if it's just I didn't see it at the right age or what, because, I mean, that is... huge to a certain generation of people. They quote it, they sing the song, and I have no problem with anything in the movie. Like, I don't dislike the movie. It just doesn't hit me the way it obviously hits other people. Like, it shows up in pop culture all the time, you know, and that's cool. But
I was 5 years old. I saw it in theaters. I think Fievel's supposed to be around 5 or something, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a relatable character. And it's sort of the story of 20th century America in a way.
Yep.
You know, hopeful immigrants coming to a land of opportunity. So, of course, that was James Horner, I think, that did the soundtrack. What's funny is they recently released a new version of the soundtrack in 2020 that has, like, a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't on the original, which is kind of cool.
Really?
I mean, I don't usually collect film soundtracks, but I think that's interesting. If We Hold On Together. That's what this is. Produced by Peter Asher, I know that name. And that's Diana Ross. Diana Ross is singing it. Which is kind of interesting, because that was more of like a Disney thing, you know, but you're getting Diana Ross singing this song. That's kind of cool. Because that would really become the staple the next few years, right? You'd have like a Disney movie, and then you'd have the normal version of the song, but then for the credits, you'd have like a couple like big pop stars.
Professional, yeah.
Like they did with, you know, A Whole New World was like what? It was like James Ingram and Celine Dion, you know, stuff like that.
Which most of the time I preferred the movie singer.
That is awesome, Corey, because I like soundtracks and I like vinyl. So you are cool in my book. I think the only soundtrack I have on vinyl is I'm not going to go dig for it, but is Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty cool. That being John Williams. Credits are always worth watching a Bluth movie too, because they give you a little more animation. It's nice seeing just these little bits, showing a bit more of the world.
And they're not scrolling on a black screen super fast either. They're big.
Yeah.
They give most of them their moments. The animators.
There we go. The animators. And I mean, that's another thing. I think the Bluth champion, being an animator himself, was let's not bury these people. They're what making the movie, because they'll never sit right with me. And I mean, I understand that when you watch a lot of these movies, like so much credit is given to the actors. I'm not saying the actors aren't important, but they're not, you know, putting the movie together the way the animators are.
The hours and the work that the animators put in for several years is
right. And I mean, I respect the hell out of voice acting, but at the same time, especially if you're not a real voice actor, like there's a lot of actors who are just actors. And again, I'm not discounting that because it's work in its own, but you know, for them, usually doing a voice acting thing is almost like taking a break in a way. Like I've had to run around and do stunts and costumes, all this, but here I can just sit in the booth and sip my drink.
Come in my pajamas.
Yeah, you know, and read it. I wish I could do voices, then I'd be a voice. Pat Hingle was the narrator. I said Hinkley. Hingle. Hingle.
Wasn't he Commissioner Gordon and
he was also the
Burton
character
Batman?
Rooter, who was that weird guy that you were asking about, like what species he could be. That was Rooter.
Yes.
He was also the. Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I was saying, wasn't he also the Commissioner Gordon in the Tim Burton Batman movies?
Oh, maybe the Tim Burton Batman. Oh, because I was going to say, because I know it's okay, because I know it's not the animated series one, because that guy's name. To me, that's the best show ever. Because that was what, Hoskins? Somebody. Yeah, check his name. Because he's another guy who. One thing that was interesting about, as much as I love voice actors, it's like most of the voice acting in Batman the Animated Series was done by people who were not typically voice actors; they were regular actors. Oh yeah, Bob Hastings. Sorry, that's just for my own. Bob Hastings was Commissioner Gordon in Batman the Animated Series.
So good. Hey Ben Grimm, another one. Thanks for stopping by.
You missed the movie, unless maybe not. Maybe you're only just speaking now.
Yeah.
But no, it's still satisfying all these years later. And I mean, obviously, for somebody like you and me, there's always going to be a degree of nostalgia to it.
Very
I grew up with the movie. Again, it was one of my very first theater experiences. It was in my wheelhouse as a kid who was obsessed with dinosaurs. But I mean, I still think it really holds up quite well. And I don't know how many Bluth movies we can find or do, but I'd be interested because I'm so hard on like a lot of the stuff he did in the 90s. Like I hate those movies. Like I don't dislike them, I hate them. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, this three that I've mentioned a couple times, that's the era for me. He captured something, and then once you get in the 90s, like you say, they just never clicked with me again.
Yeah. Anastasia was good, which we did do. Anastasia was good.
And that we had fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Ooh, Ben likes Whereback. Was that Don Bluth?
I do not know.
I didn't think that
I know
was Don
See,
Bluth.
Rockadoodle's one I hate. I hate Rockadoodle. Maybe I need to see it again, give it another chance, but I can just remember despising Rockadoodle. I despise.
Do we do a hate commentary on Rockadoodle?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Wasn't that
did he do a troll in Central Park?
He very well could have, yeah.
I hated that one, if that's him. And that one is awful because what's his name is the main character in that one. Dom DeLuise. No, I thought Dom DeLuise was look at that little shot of the tree star. That's a nice little ending. Dom Bluth. See, so very artistic. He was always
just shut it off.
Oh, well, it just shows the tree star fall on the water, and then it just says a Don Bluth film. It's very artistic. He was very artistic, Don Bluth.
Oh yeah.
I need to see the movie with wiser eyes. Yes, okay. That's fair. That's fair. And James the Pebble and the Penguin might have been him. I'm going to look very quickly at his filmography here, so I don't misattribute movies to him that weren't him.
Don I just remember didn't do We're Back, but it was I think Amblin film.
Yeah, animated. I don't even know that one. See, the thing was Secret of Nim was his first full one. As far as I'm concerned, best one. Love it. American Tail, I don't love the way everybody else loves, but solid film. Love Land Before Time. I need to see All Dogs Go to Heaven, but I've always liked it. But then you get Rockadoodle, Thumbelina, Patrol in Central Park, and the Pebble Thing. Like those four wipe me out. Like I hate all of them. Again, my memories of them are old. It's been a long time since I've watched them, but I just remember hating them. Anastasia's pretty decent. Wow, he actually was the director. Remember we said they made this direct-to-video sequel for Anastasia about Bartok? He actually did direct that. I figured there was no way he directed that. And he did Titan AE, which is the closest thing to sort of a more serious movie because it's like a... No, Pagemaster was not Bluth. Pagemaster is terrible. I get a kick out of it because it's bad and it's it's terrible, but like in a sort of enjoyable way. That movie was just like a big sort of cash grab. There's like, oh man, like what's his name? Macaulay Culkin's the biggest star in the world. He's going to be like going into an animated movie and we'll use all these. But it's like Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Stewart and all these big. It's so terrible.
Yeah, it's not.
If that movie was about trying to get kids to like love reading, like that probably totally backfired.
Yeah,
kids watching this like, opposite. Like I'm over going to the library. Fuck this.
That was actually directed by Joe Johnson though, and Maurice Hunt was the animation director. I don't know who that is. But... what is it? Rockadoodle, Thumbelina, Troll, Central Park, the Penguin. I don't think I've seen Thumbelina all the way through.
but I know I didn't like it either.
I don't think I liked. Again, I'm with you on that. Once it hits the 90s, it's pretty.
But I will try to see if I can come up with All Dogs at some point, because that's definitely a good one, and one I forget so much of that movie. My memories of that are very, very old. I know it's responsible for the term "big-lipped alligator moment," which is kind of interesting. If you've heard that term before,
No.
well,
I can relate to what you're saying now.
Well, you know that there's a sequence in the movie where an alligator with big lips just starts singing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
music together.
So in the trope is, and it was coined, I think, by the nostalgia critic, was like the idea of a big-lipped alligator moment is when you have a moment in a movie that has nothing to do with the rest of the plot and just comes out of nowhere.
Okay.
So
that makes total sense.
Because apparently that's how that works. Like it really does not have anything to do with what's actually going on or something. I don't know.
It's a catchy song. Yeah.
We will.
Well, hopefully you'll like
out.
it. Hopefully we'll do that one. That would
for
definitely
sure.
be
And then
one
after that, I mean, I don't mind doing the movies I hate either, because everybody knows I enjoy ripping things apart. And if you like something, I'll take joy in shitting on it. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, we'll see how this goes. It's yet to be determined. But I mean, at least All Dogs Go to Heaven. That's definitely a priority. That's another one that had sequels, right? Again, that Bluth wasn't involved in.
It did, but again, you don't. Yeah. Can toss those in the.
I love Rocketeer, by the way, man. That's one of the good things about having Disney Plus is you can watch the Rocketeer, which I have no idea why that wasn't a hit in its day. I loved it, and I still really. I mean, it's not fantastic, but I surely like it.
I think that was another one I was so excited about when I saw the trailer, watched the making, and then I watched it, and for some reason was disappointed, bored. I don't know.
I mean, it's not great. It's definitely not great, but I still like it all these years later, and it's one of the better movies to enjoy. What's her name in Jennifer Connelly? She's just so gorgeous in that movie. So there's that. But anyway, yeah. So we'll definitely. It's a priority to do All Dogs Go to Heaven because that's one we both think is good, and for me especially, I just need to see it again because it's been so long. And then after that, it's kind of wide open how much more we can do with Bluth, but I don't know. We'll see what we can do. And in the meantime, there's other animated movies, obviously, I always want to do. So if Jess is interested in them, maybe we can get together and do that. So there's plenty of possibilities for the future going forward. So anyway, I don't want to keep it too long tonight. So that's great.
Thanks for having me on. I've had a blast on these so far. So
yeah, it's been really fun, and I think it's worked out. It's nice to have some people showing up because I mean, this is not one I gave anybody. Like, I didn't give anybody heads up that it was happening because I wasn't sure for a while, so I didn't even make any announcements on Twitter or anything like that. So it's cool that people actually noticed it was going on. So we appreciate that. But maybe next time we'll be able to plan it a little better. We can let you know in advance what we're doing and when we're going to do it. So thanks a lot for anybody that joined us or who's joining us in the future. So, all right, guys, we'll see you all again next time, one way or another, whatever we're doing. Thanks again, Jess. We'll see ya. Peace out. Bye-bye.